Good evening. Welcome to the BS and Beer Show. Of course, BS stands for Building Science. Tonight's topic is business models for high performance design build firms. And I'm Travis. I already finished my first beer, and I'm going to have to go get another one because it's been that kind of day. But I'll do that after our guests start their introductions because the fridge is just right there. So anyway, BS and Beer is an independent grassroots movement to share building science knowledge through local meetups. And this, our Zoom show, the brew crew and our guests volunteer our time each week to bring you what we hope will be a fun and informative discussion. Of course, I want to take this opportunity to thank Green Building Advisor and Fine Home Building Magazine. You will find the chat box icon at the bottom of your screen where you can post your questions and comments. Be sure you click on all panelists and attendees or everyone. Otherwise, Zoom tends to revert to panelists only, and it's super irritating because only we'll see your comments, and we're trying to host a show, so we might miss something. Fine Home Building sends out Zoom reminders each week, and if you want to receive those as well as other information, you can join our mailing list at thebsnbeershow.com. Or you can check out the weekly post at Green Building Advisor that Kylie writes up. That goes up every Sunday morning. And if you have not been receiving the emails, please check your spam box. The video recording of tonight's show will be available at Green Building Advisor, and all past shows can be found on YouTube through the link at thebsnbeershow.com. An audio-only version of the BS and Beer Show is available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And then I will mention just a few links here that Mike will add to the chat box for us. The local BS and Beer KC group is doing a virtual meeting next week on the 7th on virtual design charrettes. So that will be hosted by Kylie, myself, Ken Reed, and Connor Malloy, our guests. So that will be an excellent conversation. You can join Fine Home Building for their first Pro Talk Live event on Wednesday, January 12th at 9 a.m. It looks like it's at Red on Salmon in Portland, Oregon, and it's going to be hosted by senior editor and Pro Talk podcast host Patrick McComb. Guests will hear from industry pros like Tim and Brian Euler, Josh Salinger, and Lindsay Shack in this one-day expo. So that sounds cool. The National Associated Home Builders International Builders Show is February 8th through 10th in Orlando. And us, the brew crew, we will all be there. We'll do BS and Beer shows in the afternoon each day. So come join us at that. Efficient Vermont's Better Buildings Conference is February 2nd and 3rd in Billington, Vermont. You should register before December 15th to get the discount. Again, links to all this in the chat box. And finally, NESEA's Building Energy Boston Conference is February 28th through March 1st in Boston. So check out all those links. Go to all the great things. Keep learning. Thank you for joining us tonight. With that, my friend Emily.
Hey guys, Emily Mottram, architect here in Maine. We actually as a family do a wine advent in the month of December. So having some wine tonight. It's Spanish. I can't pronounce it. I'm not even going to try. Having a nice red Spanish wine with you all tonight. I have the privilege of introducing our guests, and we have a great lineup today. I am kind of a business nerd because I think they don't teach you anything about running a business in architecture school. So I read a whole lot of business stuff beforehand. So this is right up my alley. What could be more building science related than how to run a successful business? So I am very excited about our guests tonight. So let's start with Mel. Mel is the co-founder and strategic director of HELM Construction Solutions, a triple bottom line construction consulting and project management firm. Mel has extensive experience in the construction industry, both in the field as a carpenter and weatherization installer, and in the office as a project manager and estimator. Mel, tell us what I missed introducing you, and if you're drinking, what you're drinking with us tonight.
Oh gosh, well, we don't have time to get into all of the details, but I'm just very grateful to be here and really appreciative of all you who put in the volunteer time to make this happen, and feel honored to be sharing the Zoom stage with some of our heroes from South Mountain. And I have water, which is really boring, but good for you.
So, good building science. Water is excellent.
Yeah. Looking
Drinking
forward to
water.
our nerdy conversation tonight. So thanks for joining us.
Great. And we have Kate. Kate is the co-founder and CFO, COO at HELM. As a business consultant, she works with established and emerging businesses and nonprofits to develop business systems, achieve triple bottom line metrics, and plan for a resilient future. Kate, welcome. What did I miss about you? And if you're drinking, what are you drinking with us?
Yeah, I've got Switchback from Vermont. And yeah, I think we'll probably end up talking a little bit more about HELM. Before HELM, I was at the Estermaro Design Build School, so I have a real interest in kind of professional education and training in the design build world.
Very cool. John Abrams is the founder and president and CEO of the South Mountain Company, a 46-year-old integrated architecture, engineering, building, and solar company committed to triple bottom line business practices. Located on Martha's Vineyard, South Mountain has been a worker cooperative for 34 years. John is also the co-founder of NESEA's Building Energy Bottom Lines Peer Network. Welcome, John. Anything I missed? Something fun? And if you're drinking, what are you drinking with us?
Well, thanks a lot, Emily. I mean, you failed to say that I didn't have time to get that bourbon, that if you see a blank screen where I'm supposed to be, I'll be off getting that bourbon and bring it back, okay? It is great to be here. I've never been to BS and Beer. I've heard all kinds of terrible things about it, and I am so excited to be here tonight.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. And last but definitely not least, Deirdre, since joining the South Mountain Company in 1995, she has inhabited a variety of roles, including bookkeeper, founder of the Interiors Department, chair of their management committee, COO, and designated CEO in training. Welcome, Deirdre.
Thank you. It's great to be here. It's really exciting. I've never done something like this before. I'm just so impressed by the company and by the production values. I am just drinking a lemon seltzer, and I think you've pretty much captured in the bio. I've spent essentially my adult working career at South Mountain, and have lived on Martha's Vineyard for just about the same amount of time. So really deeply committed to both places.
I feel like I lucked out. I wanted to move to Martha's Vineyard. It was one of the places I looked at after architecture school, and they convinced me not to. So, I don't know. So I ended up in DC
You
instead.
feel like you lucked out not moving to Martha's Vineyard?
No, yeah, I would. Then maybe I could have been working with you guys for all this time.
That's right.
So, but this is awesome. You guys are actually super professional about how you're going to handle the show and run the show. I appreciate what you said about us, Deirdre. We make it look good, right, Travis? And so I think to kick it off, it looks like, John, you're starting the conversation. I'm going to put my microphone on mute so I don't interrupt. But for everybody in the audience, we will make sure we leave some question time for you. Just keep them coming in the chat box. That's what Mike is doing. So, John, it's up
Thanks,
to you.
Emily. So I'm going to ask Mel. So we're going to do this as a conversation. We're going to ask each other questions and then talk a little bit about the answers to each one. So Mel, how do you express the meaning of triple bottom lines practice to the companies you work with? And what would you say are the hardest parts for them to embrace and incorporate as they try to improve their approach to these practices?
Great question, John. I'm going to pretend like I didn't know that question was coming. So, yeah, and
I'm going to pretend like I didn't read it.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. I'll try to keep this brief, but anyone who knows me knows that I might have a tendency to kind of go off here. So you can cut me off at any point. I wanted to start by just making the distinction. We talk about the triple bottom line. People often use the words people, planet, profit. And at HELM, we've kind of tried to take a spin on the word profit. We'll be showing our politics a little bit here as we go through. But so we talk about prosperity instead of profit because financial sustainability is more than just making money, right? And before I get into what I see is some of the top barriers to implementing triple bottom line practices, I kind of want to set the stage a little bit about why do we even care about the triple bottom line, and why are we even talking about this tonight in high performance businesses and what that means. And I just want to kind of get real with it. And I don't know if my friend Andrew's on here, but he reminded me the other day with his NESEA ad that the world is on fire. And for those of you who are following it, the IPCC report that just came out kind of reaffirms what many of us already know, that we're not doing enough quick enough to slow global warming. And, I just want to get real about the fact that, capitalism is a system that we are in that is exploitative, that is unsustainable, that is exacerbating climate change. And climate change disproportionately impacts certain people, Indigenous folks, people of color, immigrants, people living in poverty. And so we're in a moment, right? And so when we talk about the triple bottom line, it's not just because it makes us feel good or it's like a cute marketing thing. For me, it's because I'm desperate to figure out a way to exist in this system that we're in and be finding creative solutions to dismantle it and rebuild it in a way we want, right? So it's really out of desperation, I would say. And are there contradictions in thinking about the high performance building market? Absolutely. Are we going to work our way out of climate change by building single family passive houses for people with wealth? Probably not, but we have to start somewhere. And I really want to put emphasis on, it's not just what we're building, it's how we're building. And that's kind of where we get into the business part of it. So this idea, I love the term prefigurative politics. The chat is really distracting, but also fun to see everybody commenting on there. But, prefigurative politics, right? This vision of this world that we want, why are we waiting? Let's build it now, And so when we talk about the triple bottom line, that's what it means to me. And to us at HELM is, what are all of the different ways through our construction businesses that we can be implementing this new world that we want now? And why construction? Because it's strategic. Construction is a huge influencer on our climate, and it's a huge opportunity. So to actually answer your question now, John, thanks for that. I want to start with purpose. So I think that we talk a lot at HELM about a lot of the companies that we work with are accidental business owners. And what I mean by that is they got into this trade or this profession, usually because of the craft, because they were drawn to the trades, not entirely, but, and then all of a sudden, fast forward 5-10 years and they're running a business. And so I think starting with what is the purpose of the business is a core part of the triple bottom line of understanding a triple bottom line business. What is the point of it? What impact are we trying to make through that business? What needs is it serving? And so just getting really clear about that, whether that looks like visioning or mission statements or all these things that people often shy away from. I think it's a core part, and it really ties things together. The next one is, and we often start here, and this isn't because there's a hierarchy on those triple bottom line principles, but it's because if you don't have a financially viable business, it's going to be very hard to do all those really great things you want to do for the planet, for the people. And so regardless of where a company's at, helping business owners understand their numbers, right? And we can go into that in more detail, but that's kind of where we start with companies is, knowing your numbers, doing operating budgets, understanding your gross profit margin, knowing why you pick those markups, and having job cost accounting systems in place. If you're running a business and you just keep charging more to kind of account for the fact that you don't really know what your numbers are, then it's kind of a scary way to be running a business. So we start there. Second, when it comes to planet, I was thinking about this earlier. I'm like, what is the thing with planet? And I actually, and this, might push some buttons, but I think you have to pick a side and draw a line in the sand. What kind of company do you want to be, and what do you want to sell? If builders and architects, and I know it's not this simple because there's affordability and there's clients and there's all of this, but decide where you want to stand on the line, and that's what you sell. This is our product. It's kind of like building science, right? It's like, this is how we build. It's not really up for conversation. And so I think when it comes to the planet, every company has to go through their own process to really reflect on where they want to stand in the conversation. And, no judgment here on it, but we are sort of running out of time. So I'm like, every little thing we can do, right? And then the last one I saved for last because I think it's the most complicated, and that's the people. We're in a moment in our industry where there's a labor shortage crisis. There is also, at least we're experiencing, a frenzy of, a boom in the construction. And the thing I want to say about people, it's not just hiring people, it's how are companies investing in people and supporting people and developing people and training people. And one of the things that we have noticed at HELM through the pandemic and through this labor crisis is that I think people are putting a lot more energy into investing in their current team than they ever have before, which is really has been really cool to see, actually. The last thing I'll say, and then I'll stop talking and I want to ask you all some questions, is I think one of the biggest challenges that we see over and over again are owners, and anyone who's worked with me has heard me say this, owners wearing too many hats, so many hats that they actually don't have the time and the capacity to do the things they need to do to support the people, right? And so a big motto or big saying I've been saying over and over again this year is do less better, right? Even for myself, how can we do less and do it better? And for owners, people in leadership, not just owners, but people in leadership, if we're constantly overwhelmed by the frenzy of the moment and more things, and we're never making space for things like, employee reviews. Like, I know you all listening are like, oh yeah, right. These things that matter, or writing that vision. So yeah, I'll stop it there. And speaking of people, I wanted to ask Deirdre actually about workforce development. This is a really hot topic right now. In particular, I'm curious what you all are doing at South Mountain around workforce development. And if you're seeing any shifts happening in a conversation around work-life balance and employee well-being, people are under a lot of stress. I'd just love to hear how you all are navigating that.
Yeah, thanks, Mel. As many of you who've read John's book will know, we're very people-centered. And so it's such a big part of our culture. So in terms of the workforce development, we have two local initiatives that we're working on right now to try and essentially develop a local minor league. And we're partnering with the local high school. One of the things is that we're donating to a local philanthropic organization who provides workforce development scholarships for high school graduates who are interested in the trades. And so there's a college track and a trade track, and the scholarships are available to both tracks instead of just the college track. So one of our employees who we have unfortunately lost to Dan Colbert because he moved off island came to us. He got this scholarship, and then he actually went to study in furthers carpentry skills at Yestermore, where Kate was the executive director. So that's one thing. It's new. It's about 4 years old, and we're just trying to every year we promote it. It's not specifically earmarked for the building trades, but it's open to any of the students that want to pursue any of the trades programs that they offer in the high school and then move on to further study. The other thing is that our local high school is one of the few high schools in the state where both college track and trades track are in the same school. We don't have a separate vocational school. So we've been recently, they have new leadership over there, and we had a meeting with them last week about, with the director of the trades program and the work study program, about how we can get students to come and have placement with us during the school day and be exposed to what we do, and also possibly create a pipeline for ourselves. It turns out that the pipeline that exists is really for usually young men to do some trades in the high school and then go work in their family business, or for their uncle, or, in the family plumbing business. So we're trying to branch out a little bit and see if we can have it make South Mountain really appealing to them, have them come and visit. Possibly we'll go to the high school and bring some donuts and bring our young carpenters, both male and female, so that there's this greater exposure. I mean, as somebody said, those kids aren't going to call us. It's hard when you're 16 to figure out how to call an adult for a job when you've never done that before. So we're trying to remove the friction, possibly go to them, make it really easy for them to come and tour our facility, talk to people that have similar interests to them. Also, Martha's Vineyard has a large undocumented Brazilian population, and we're trying to figure out whether we can have those students be a part of programs with us. And that's kind of, that's a whole complicated separate issue, but that is essentially the future of the trades on Martha's Vineyard. And it'd be really important for us to figure that out. So that's kind of what we're doing to fill our internship and apprentice positions. And right now we have 6 positions in 3 of our departments, in our production department, in our architecture department, and our energy technology department. So we just rolled out a ton of marketing for those roles just in the last 10 days. And we're approaching it as though it's a communications issue. Like, we want to be communicating what we're doing to everybody else so they can see it. We can highlight, our people-centered work. We can highlight our employee well-being, all of our benefits and all of that, and contrast it to the jobs that people may be leaving or that have made them unhappy in their current place of work. And so Abby Zell, who's on this call, she's our communications coordinator, and she's really leading that effort. We've really consolidated our recruiting into a communications effort. And one of the things we're trying to highlight, a lot of the things that are both about our structure and about our benefits. We're finding that being a worker co-op, being a B Corp, and a triple bottom line business are all really important to people in their 20s and early 30s as they come up in the job market. So they're finding us and kind of giving us over the transom resumes because they feel like there's a values alignment there that more so than there was in the past. So when we go into this marketing, and you can see it on Instagram, it's going to get posted in bottom lines, it's going to get posted on the NESEA job board. We focus on employee well-being, on meeting the particular needs of the staff at their particular time of life. So do they need a childcare subsidy? Do they need help finding housing? Do they need a rental subsidy? Do they need a housing grant? Maybe $20,000 just to get over the hump for the down payment or to get that new roof. Do they need to have a flexible schedule so they can go to the 4th grade play or coach the high school girls soccer team, at that when their daughter's on it, that kind of thing. We have full health insurance. We focus a lot on our benefits and our health benefits, a lot on professional development, and then a lot on what Mel just referred to on creating a skill development path for each person, through performance reviews, which can either be performance plans, but we'd much rather them be skill development plans, right? We want you to love it here. We want you to get better at your job, to have new opportunities, and we want to help you, move all that ahead. So I think that's pretty much it. That's just like a summary. I'm totally happy to answer questions later on any of the particulars that I touched on.
I just want to say kudos on bilingual job ads too. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, great. Thank you.
I don't know what they said, but I could tell they were in Portuguese. So
what's interesting about that is that even people who aren't Portuguese, who are younger, have responded so positively to the fact that we are considering that being that inclusive, that makes them want to come to us, even though it's not a direct appeal to them. It's very interesting that.
But this undocumented this is a tough one to solve. So here are these kids coming out with skills and psyched about working, and the only places they can work are places that are not legitimate. And we're trying to figure out how we can cross that bridge and embrace them. And it's a really sticky, tricky, expensive problem.
Yeah. I bet we could get creative there.
We're just starting that exploration with them. Yeah. So Kate, this is actually a great segue into some questions for you about diversifying the workforce. and successes that you've seen in increasing the gender diversity in the construction field?
Yeah, I mean, hot topic. I think Emily, this is what we talked about last time I was on DSN here. was more about workforce development and kind of recruiting. And I think a lot of the things like that you just mentioned, Deirdre, are similar to strategies that we're seeing. But I think there are multiple pieces to this whole effort. One is certainly on the hiring front, and you spoke to how to get out, get the word out about the job to, a potentially different audience. And that's really that's the first step to kind of go beyond the old boys network of just, oh, I know a guy, my cousin's brother, whatever, which has often been the traditional way of hiring in construction companies. So one of the first steps that we recommend to all the folks that we're working with is just kind of, actually put it out into the universe. We have the internet now, publish that you are hiring. People are desperate now, and so they are getting more creative about ways to do that, but in some non-traditional places. And you mentioned some of the schools. There's not only your local trade school and vocational schools, there are other places like North Bennett Street School. We've seen a bunch of hires come out of there. Yestermorrow Heartwood School that teaches timber framing, places like that where folks are doing kind of maybe slightly alternative construction education. And so it's kind of getting the word out. And I think, efforts like yours about having bilingual job postings, something we've been experimenting with too. And the one note I would say is for that to really work, there needs to be someone who can speak that language that can answer the phone when that person calls. But so we've been working to figure out that piece of it. But yeah, so it's kind of getting it out and making it, I think this may be obvious to some people, but we really like to put in all the job ads, a sentence that just says, we are encouraging women and transgender folks and people of color to apply. We have kind of a blanket statement, but I have heard from a number of candidates who I then ended up interviewing as that was enough to kind of push them to think about applying, and not just equal opportunity employer, whatever the heck that means. It feels like it's just sort of a compliance statement, but being more proactive and saying yes, we are actively looking to to increase the diversity of our team, and even talking about why, because I think it's a employee market right now, right? There are a lot of jobs out there, and it's not so much about, this is what we need as the company. It's about what does that employee want, and how can you catch their eye and appeal to them and describe the benefits, describe what's going to be different about working in your company versus somewhere else. So there's definitely the hiring piece, but it's equally important what happens once you get them in the door. It's the whole onboarding and training piece. And I think being really, Mel mentioned, we spend a lot of time writing job descriptions, which sounds mundane, but having people really want to know what's expected of them in their job. They want to be able to do a good job. And so bringing people in and being really clear about, what you want them to do. And we've been working a lot on kind of mentoring, trying to identify, often there are certain people in your company who love mentoring and can be really good mentors, whether they're men or women or, whoever they are. And kind of actually empowering those folks to take on a mentorship role and being more explicit about what that looks like. Mm-hmm. And so once you're getting more gender diversity within your team, helping the new folks come in and be mentored. And, I think going back, your original question was kind of where have we seen success? And I think we have seen some companies where there really is a multiplying factor.
Yeah.
Once they went from 2 women to 3 women and all
shout out Maine Passive House.
Yeah, Maine Passive House. all of a sudden they have 50% women on their crew because they kind of hit that tipping point to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a tricky thing to go to companies that don't have a lot of gender diversity and be like, well, once you hit the tipping point, you'll be all set. They're like, but we're trying to hire the first woman. But trying to, think about even when you get those folks on your crew, one of the recommendations is also, pair two women together on a crew so that they have someone that they're working with often. So those are just some of the things that we've seen.
Can I add a quick little thing, Kate?
Yeah.
Because this is a fun topic to talk about. I'll keep it short. Just in terms of like a responsibility, right? So if, diversity is a popular word to throw around these days, or Jedi work. If you're going out and you're trying to hire diverse candidates, whatever that might mean, I guess I just want to, beyond like being really intentional about the onboarding process and the idea of mentorships and whatnot, is just sort of a plug to be like, do the work that may be required internally to look at the culture you currently have and make sure that you're even a place that's going to be a good place for a diverse candidate, right? And so that might look different, and I don't know who all is out there on the BS and Beer channel, but it might be an anti-racism training. It might be a training on toxic masculinity. It might be like just more basic stuff, in looking at what are our company policies, what's in our HR handbook. Do we have an HR? Do we have a person in our company who is HR who is not the boss or the sole owner? Because we see that a lot, and that can be problematic. I've actually experienced that with employees who are like, yeah, I don't want to bother the person who's in charge of HR because they're overwhelmed and busy. That's a problem. So just like really thinking carefully about, like, don't let it hold you back, but thinking carefully about what is your responsibility, that if you go out and hire and bring in diverse candidates, it's not just like that suddenly everything in your culture is going to change because of that candidate. And if anything, I encourage you to bring in multiple people at once, and then be looking inward at the culture.
Yeah, another aspect of that, Kate, you mentioned, hiring your friend. And we spent many years doing that. Whoever walked in the door, show up Monday, and learned after a while, and especially from being a worker co-op so early in our life, like 10 years in, that those people were just going to stay. And whoever they were going to stay. And at a certain point, we realized, wait a minute, we're not hiring employees, we're hiring future owners. And we better think hard about this. We better be intentional about it in every aspect of it. So it's become a real, this is a big job. Hiring is not like, it's a big job, thinking hard about what we're looking for, who's going to fit, and how that all goes together.
And I just wanted to add on to what Kate was saying. We just hired our first non-binary solar installer, and they had come from farming. And so if you're going to look outside the particular trade you're in, you want to be able to look to other forms of employment where people could be outside all the time and are comfortable with that kind of work. And farming turns out to be a really, really great one. And farming is hard. And sometimes people would rather have a paycheck and farm on the side. And all different kinds of young people go into farming these days. So it's a really good, they have a lot of skills. They're often technical, they can be mechanical. They have to work with numbers. So I'd recommend that as an option.
Fertile ground for harvesting people.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
All right, well, maybe I'll switch gears, and I've got a question for you, John, which is, in terms of kind of the people bottom line, there's not just the employees that we work with, but there's also kind of the larger community. And I'm curious, like, what strategies can construction companies implement that help them kind of look at that bigger circle and impact the places where we live, the communities where we live?
Well, I think I tell it this way, that 40 years ago, we identified and began to tackle an issue that's intensified over all those years: affordable housing for working people in our small island community. I mean, there are many other parts of our commitment to the community, our 10% of profits to primarily local nonprofits, an additional 10% of profits to community pro bono work, and like all of the work that Deirdre was talking about. But I'm going to focus here on affordable housing because it's become central to our identity as a company, and it's probably our most difficult and complex local problem, although like everything else, it exists in the shadow of climate change and climate justice, but it's a problem that is common to all desirable places. Wherever people want to live, this is a serious problem. So we've taken a many-pronged approach to this. Over time, we've engaged in a number of real estate development projects, which are fundamentally different from most of our work, which is commissioned by clients. So our self-directed development work has always been limited to subsidized and restricted affordable housing, permanent affordable housing. We've also made a conscious and concerted kind of an effort to engage our clients in the affordable housing efforts. So they, our clients, and we by extension, are part of the cause of the problem. And it follows that they should be part of the solution. So this has been an amazing journey of discovery, where we have told our clients when they hire us that we will be talking to them about this problem at some point in the future. And they've responded in dramatic fashion, and over the years have been responsible for millions of dollars donated to subsidize our affordable housing efforts as they began to see the connection between their use of this place and their living in the place and the workforce that's needed to sustain it. So that's been really exciting. Finally, we've worked on diverse community initiatives such as zoning changes and policy changes, but most importantly, we've been working for 15 years, I'm embarrassed to say it, to convince our 6 towns and our state legislature to create a housing bank funded by real estate transfer fees. We're currently working on our 3rd campaign for this, and as interest has picked up steam statewide, we think we may be nearly there, and if enacted, this housing bank will bring $7 to $10 million of dedicated funds each year to the issue. And although funds come from many other sources, this steady stream year after year would provide the backbone to our efforts, and might be the mechanism that actually turns the tides, tips the scales, and solves this problem in our community. So needless to say, we're really excited about this possibility. But as a company, I have to, I mentioned how these efforts have become a part of our identity as a company. And for a while, that actually backfired. The high-end clients who are part of our sustenance began to associate us with affordable housing. Oh, they're the people that do affordable housing, and started to not come to us. And we had to go on this like serious marketing effort to let the community know that we still do all that other stuff too, and the high performance crafted, but so that we had more diverse capabilities than just that. So sometimes you just can't win, you know?
Yeah.
Who's next? Are we?
John, you're up.
I'm going to ask, both of you that, so you're a company that does this tremendous job helping other companies learn about triple bottom line practices and practice them. how do you walk that talk and be what you are the proponent of?
Mel,
Kate,
you want to go
actually,
first?
this is for you.
This is for me? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know why,
Yeah.
but it is.
It's all good. It's a different question, but we can absolutely answer it.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to someone about this earlier today. It's kind of, what does it mean to, take this idea of, that part of our mission and our focus is climate justice, and how do you actualize that, as Mel said, in a world where we're often building $1 million passive houses that are second and third homes for people. Not that that's all the work that's happening, but there's definitely a chunk of it. I think we have a couple different strategies that we're implementing and have really been kind of strategically looking at the impact that we want to have in our consulting work, which means both prioritizing working with women and BIPOC owned companies and worker co-ops. And so we're specifically looking at how to support those types of businesses and their growth and resilience. So it's in the kinds of businesses that we're working with. It's in the kinds of projects that we take on, because in addition to our business consulting, we're also providing project management services to a whole range of builders and different community projects. And we're really prioritizing community-based, mission-aligned projects. So often for nonprofit or community-based organizations. So because we have a pretty limited capacity of how many of these projects we can take on in every year. So they better be good ones, that we're really excited about and that hit all the boxes. And we're looking at who do we want on our team and the diversity of our team in our hiring process as we've been growing rapidly over the last few years. So
shameless plug,
How
we're
many-
also hiring. It hasn't been put out there yet, but if you love talking about business and systems and organization and you know a lot about the construction industry and you want to put your tool belt up and come work with us, I'm recruiting. So.
And if you want a job on a beautiful island where it's impossible to live because affordable housing is such a crisis, give us a call.
Yeah, and we have about 50 companies that are all hiring as well at every level. So it's a little bit nuts right now. I don't know if this exactly answers your question, John, but I noticed a comment in the chat, and I just kind of want to see if I can weave it into the response here. But part of why we do the work we do, and now we have a little war happening in the chat about who should hire whom. It's a great option too. Building science, right? Like this is called BS and Beer, building science, which is a fantastic topic. I love learning about vapor permeability and wall assemblies and thermal bridging and all that stuff. And I heard someone say at one of the previous NESEA conferences, we can't, net zero our way out of this. I forget if it was New Frameworks or someone who said that, but, talking about building science and the techniques and what happens on the ground is so important. And the reason that we do what we do is we want to see those companies that are hyper focused on building high performance buildings, on building healthy buildings, on building, carbon storing and resilient buildings. We want to see those companies be the ones that survive. Not that we don't want the other ones to survive too, but we want to make sure that those are the companies that survive, which is why tonight's show gets to be about high performance businesses. Because if you've got, excuse my language, a shitty business or a business that is flailing, not only are you going to have a hard time hiring people, particularly in this market, but you're going to have a really hard time selling that great high performance product and executing it according to schedule and according to your estimate, and giving a good service to your clients. And so when we think of businesses, it's a system. It's not just what happens in production. It's also the strategy. It's also the organizational development. It's also the business development. It's also the financials. And so I guess I just wanted to say that because I saw that comment. And yeah, and I'm curious, as someone who's not part of the Bottom Lines Network myself, but works with a lot of companies who are in it, which is NESEA's peer network. Kate and John, you're both facilitators for it, and I'd love to just hear a little bit more about like what are the benefits for triple bottom line or aspiring triple bottom line businesses of being part of networks like that.
You want to go first, Kate?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think since we started the Bottom Lines Network back in 2014, which feels like it's been a little while, and it's just been so fun to see. We've got some of those core founders are here tonight, I think, in the chat, a bunch of the members. But what I really think is so inspiring about the idea of these peer networks is that you get to see what's possible. It's so easy as a small business owner to just be in your little bubble and so, stuck in the day-to-day rat race of just trying to keep up and being totally underwater, that all of a sudden to be in a room with 10 of your peers who, may have very similar businesses, might have businesses that are much larger and more established, might be, startups, but doing something really unique, to look around the room and see what people are doing and how they're doing it, and having these like really honest conversations about the struggles that they're having and what the challenges are and what they're trying to work on. I think it's just eye-opening to just see what's possible. And I see it, in terms of like owner compensation. I've seen so many small business owners who've been kind of just like at it for years, and then they're like, oh God, I don't even know how much I made last year, but maybe it was $30,000, and they come into a room and say, oh wow, they look at these other businesses, not to say that they're all raking it in, but to see, oh, okay, it is possible to make a living doing this work, and that's possible. But I think one of there are 6 of these groups within Bottom Line. So each of the facilitators has a different group, and they're about 8 or 10 companies in each one. But one of the coolest things in my group that I have noticed this past year or so is a lot of conversations about like, what does it mean to be a leader? What does it mean to be a business owner? And really seeing folks make that transition in many cases from just like tool belt on, out in the field, showing people, what to do on a day-to-day basis, but to be like, okay, what does it mean to lead this company? And talk with some vulnerability about what that is like. So
and realizing that all these things we've been talking about tonight up till now, you just can't do unless you intentionally devote the time and effort to it. The thing that I've loved seeing, Kate, 7 years, basically the same 10 or 11 companies, the maturation, seeing these companies grow together, learn from each other. And Deirdre and I were just marveling the other day about last month at our gathering. I think 6 or 7 of the companies are in some kind of transition of ownership and leadership, either contemplating or deeply in it or just done it. And it's just so exciting to see everybody grow together.
Also, I find exciting. It's so interesting to see the arc over the years, right? It's like when I had a baby, we went to baby's first year, and there were You know, when my son was 1 month old, there were mothers who had sons that were 6 months old, and there's such a big difference, and you see what happens next, and you have someone to talk to. And so to see all these businesses mature, as John said, over 8 years, where somebody started out where they couldn't figure out whether to keep their single employee, and 8 years later, they're taking the tool belt off and running the business with a staff, and they have a building. That's just incredible. Like every 6 months you check in and they're at a different place, and all of a sudden there's this amazing leap, right? And it's a different kind of business. It's just been really amazing in that way. And then you get, you know, partnerships that don't work out, and how do you navigate that? It's just like a whole life experience. Live through the business.
Mm.
Yeah, and like very practical stuff too. I mean, one of the things with the Bottom Lines Network is we do have like a listserv basically where people can post questions. And so it's, you know, this whole idea of kind of sharing best practices and saying,
yeah,
hey, you know, what do you guys know about 401ks if we want to set that up for the first time? Or anyone have a template for their pre-construction agreement that they want to share? Or you know, what about anyone have a job description for a weatherization installer? So, you know, you get people sharing all that kind of stuff, which is just like, yeah, it goes back to what we're doing at HELM every day too, but it's like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You know, you know, that's one of the things about the NESEA community that's so great is like, you know, this idea of it's sharing, it's not competition, right? Like we will lift the boat for everyone. I don't know the right metaphor, but you know, we're all in this together. We want all our businesses to be successful, and it's not, or you know, it's like, how can we help each other do this better?
It's very
whether
supportive.
it's science or it's business, you know.
So Mason Lord ordered me to go get that bourbon. So here's a mid-show cheers to everybody.
You know, that reminds me, put my coaching hat on for a minute, and you know, just thinking about the isolation that a lot of business owners feel when they're not a part of a network or a community. You know, it's not common for contractors to go to the lumberyard and to talk to other contractors about their markup or their hiring practices or their struggles with office manager, whatever it might be. And it can feel really isolating. And, you know, most people who are in these positions are not, you know, they don't have a formal, occasionally a few do have formal business education backgrounds, but most are self-taught and are really like kind of making it up as they go. And it's amazing how successful a lot of the companies that come to us, I'm like, wow, you've been doing this for 30 years and you kind of made it up as you went, and you've been successful. But the thing that comes up for me, and when I think of bottom lines, even though I haven't participated in it, I've been in some of the annual meetings, is just like the hope and inspiration that the peer network can provide people. And I often think about, and it comes back to what I said at the beginning around purpose, is, you know, what is getting in the way? What like limiting beliefs are getting in the way of people actually going out and getting that vision or going after that purpose, right? And it's a lot of fear, a lot of, you know, it's a lot of things. And I think the flip side of that, which is, you know, that I'm seeing so intensely right now, is the huge amounts of stress and overwhelm that people are experiencing. I mean, obviously we're in a pandemic, we're in a moment, some of us in a construction boom. That chronic, whether it's like workaholic or chronic feeling of having to say yes to everything because, you know, there's that little voice in your head that like, you're going to run out of work. So you have to say yes to everything. So a big thing that we, you know, a reoccurring theme at HELM, and I said this earlier, do less better, but is having really good systems in place, like production management schedules and process maps, really good systems in place for understanding when to say no and when to say yes, and how to be really clear with your clients and with your architects, if you're working with one, or with your own design team internally about what is actually possible. Everything takes longer than we think. And so when we manage those expectations poorly from the beginning, we're just creating a whole lot of stress and overwhelm for everyone on the team. So anyway, I imagine that the bottom lines and other peer networks like it are a good place for people feeling supported around that kind of stuff and seeing what's possible. That like being a builder or a contractor, a design build firm, an architect doesn't have to mean that you're constantly stressed out and overwhelmed. Like there actually is, and you know, Kate and I get to see companies go through that evolution over the years. And so we know it's possible. But sometimes that can take a little while for people to actually believe that there is a different way.
What else, you guys?
I think we could open it up potentially and take on some
Travis,
questions. I mean, we have
the chat. I don't know.
How does
Yeah, Mike's
Q&A
been filling
work
it
here?
in.
Yeah, I don't know if they're all Mike's questions or if they're from the chat box, because I lost the chat box like a while ago. I just don't even bother. But Mike has definitely been filling it in on here. So
what are the hot tips that people, or what are the things that people want to know? And
so he's highlighting the ones that came from the chat box. So this is great. So Todd asked, how does a triple bottom line reconcile the need of equity for staff where you are giving sustainable wages and pulling people up from disadvantaged groups while trying to achieve planet where you stick to a carbon agenda that your own staff could never afford, i.e. living building challenge level goals is the only affordable by the 1% crowd. So I think the question is, how do you maintain, you know, the diversity of your staff with doing the bigger projects that are maybe only available to those high-end clients?
Well, this is a huge and great question. And I mean, I think that we have thought that first and foremost, we have to create careers with the best benefits on the planet, family-friendly working conditions, flexibility, all of that comes first. And then the other part is, I mean, that's what led us into affordable housing, that if all we're doing is, I mean, to me, that's a lot to do. If we can make great careers and great jobs, that's a lot to do. But if there's no relevance, as the question, who was that? Whoever asked that great question, if there's no relevance in what we do to the people who are doing it, part of the relevance is the great craft and practicing that. But if we don't have this affordable housing component, then it feels like it doesn't have, it's not a complete package.
This has been a, oh, go ahead, Travis.
Well, I was just going to say, Todd had, I recall when his comment or question popped up in the chat, and his follow-up to it was, or perhaps it was someone else that mentioned, you know, a lot of times people talk about Henry Ford, and the original Ford plants employed people at a wage that was adequate for them to actually purchase the product they were making. And so I think your point about, you know, caring for people, creating careers, not just jobs, caring for people in a way that's not just their wage, but beyond that, that speaks to that a little bit. But I think I guess my angle on this would be, for many of us business owners, we are very much still focused on, let's make sure that we create a viable business so that we don't go out of business. And once you have that foundation in place, then it becomes easier to start thinking beyond, okay, we've kept the lights on. Now we can start looking at, well, what are our goals beyond that? And I think that's probably a problem that you all have faced and tried to solve in a very direct way, because you have to kind of unlearn all your habits. Like if you start focused on profit and, you know, sustaining just the business, it's very easy to keep just focusing on profits and sustaining the business and not reestablish those goals to fit the hey, we're surviving, and now we're surviving comfortably, and now we need to do better. Now we have to go ahead and, we have to protect the planet. We have to do a better job of caring for our people. All of those things coming together as you found the business would seem to be easier, provided you can charge I hesitate to say premium, but you do have to charge more in order to pay people a better wage. And you do have to charge more to have enough money left in the coffers to donate time to Habitat or to use better products. You can't put Gutex on the house if you can't afford Gutex. So supporting all these things at the same time, I think that's where Todd was going. And I guess if each of you would like to speak to that, I think that would really inform that conversation well.
By the way, Henry Ford also said, I didn't listen to my customers. All they wanted was a faster horse.
Fair point.
I just wanted to quickly say, and this might be controversial or whatever, but for me, I think of it as wealth redistribution, frankly. If I'm going to build or be part of building a multi-million-dollar home, second, third home for someone, it's going to be high performance. And if it's going to be at a premium, it's going to be, that's just my opinion. And if the gross profit, parts of the gross profit of that project can be used to invest in training for, carpentry for women and trans folks, or can be used to work on a, domestic violence shelter, or whatever ways different companies want to distribute that, I'm personally comfortable with that model, and maybe not everyone is, but I also just wanted to put out, because this is very real. I just saw someone from my town on here, but this is very real in our community and in all across New England, and actually in other parts of the country. We're having a massive migration of people from out of state with a lot more wealth than people who live here. Currently in my community in Southern Vermont, there is zero housing available, rentals or anything. And every builder, and I don't blame them, we help them with this, they are booked for years. And so we have this, on top of this dynamic of having employees who can't afford the homes that you're building, we have a dynamic where, we are participating in gentrification, and we're not, the solutions around affordable housing that you mentioned, John, it's like housing is a crisis in many of our communities right now. And so I think thinking about how all these things play out, right? Because it's not just, oh, we're going to build high performance homes and then our conscience is, free of all guilt. It's like, how are we participating in building sustainable communities that are actually providing the ability for people to live and have accessible housing?
I think also work mix is a big thing. We've changed our work mix. It used to be single family, high-end residential homes, and then we added the affordable housing. But now we do a lot of nonprofit work and, try and make it as carbon neutral as possible and as high performance as possible. And for our staff, that's incredibly meaningful, the nonprofit work. And so we just did an early childhood education center for our local social services organization. It's beautiful. You can't help but smile when you go in there. Every time somebody drives by that worked on it, it's just going to resonate. And we're about to do some work for our local farm hub, which is a large nonprofit here. That mix kind of takes away some of the sting about working on properties that you in your whole life you would never, that is just completely unattainable.
Another part of that is that buildings that are used by the public, educational buildings, institutional buildings, they are crappy. All of them are who's the lowest bidder, and doing these institutional projects and changing the nature of what people's expectations are. Americans are used to shitty buildings, and that is so much fun. When people walk into this early childhood center, they just go, this is where I want to be, And we can all do that. We don't have to only do the residential work. And the nonprofits are so appreciative and so great to work with. So, and it's actually a profit center for us because these are big projects and we do low markup, but they support us well.
And I guess the one other thing I wanted to throw in, like going back to your question, Travis, is like, I just want to sort of push back on this idea that like, well, you have to create this sustainable business before you can start doing, you know, the planet stuff and the people stuff, because I think, you know, Mel mentioned at the beginning, this idea of like, you know, what is your purpose as a company? What's your mission? And the companies that have put that mission like out in front and been more explicit about it, you know, I think that there is the potential to be saying like, this is what we stand for, and using that as a marketing strategy that helps get you more work and gets you clients and helps you find new people and, you know, make so hire. So, you know, certainly there's some privilege kind of built into that like, it may not, that strategy may not work in every scenario, but we have seen some examples of where it can help to, draw that line in the sand and say, this is what we stand for. And that's what helps the right clients find you.
Building on that, and I want to address what David Gerstel just said.
Oh man, I was going to address that, John.
Energy efficient and high quality housing can be developed for people of modest means. So we believe that our affordable housing differs from high-end luxury housing in 3 ways. It's smaller, it's less highly detailed, and it's differently financed. And that is it. In terms of performance, it's got to be every bit as good. So yes, affordable housing can and should be, and to be truly affordable over the long term, it must be high performance.
I wanted to just speak to that too. And hi, David, I met you like 20 years ago in San Francisco. I don't know if you remember me, but anyway, you know, I'm in Southern Vermont. A lot of the projects that I've been involved in over the last many years have been for people with a budget, you know, like an actual real budget, not like, oh, I've got a budget, but like, yeah, I've got $350,000. And if you go over this, like, I can't pay you kind of budget. And so we had to get really creative, you know, value engineering is a word we use a lot around here in the HELM office in Brattleboro. So, you know, I totally agree. I don't think, and I think, I can't remember if it was Declan or someone else said this recently that, you know, we spend a lot of time picking apart architects, not that they all do this, but some picking apart, oh, high performance, I do it. High performance is so much more expensive, or passive house is so much more. And I'm like, we don't talk about things like plumbing fixtures and, you know, interior trim details and roofing choices in that same way, right? And so what is the deal? Why do we do this? And to be honest, like as an estimator, I've priced lots of projects and been like, okay, what is the ad to make this high performance? We've got an extra $5,000 in sub-slab insulation, right? We've got maybe a little bit of an upgrade in the windows, and we can find ways to balance those things out. So in my mind, it's about, we're building resilient buildings here in Southern Vermont. It's like the power's gonna go out. It is. And do you want your pipes to freeze, or do you want your nice, you know, energy efficient, pretty good house maybe to be able to withstand that until they get the, you know, the power lines back up? So I think, and the last thing I want to say is single family housing is not affordable, right? We need multifamily housing. We need to get creative about how to do more co-housing, particularly in rural areas. It's just a bad idea, in my opinion. And for some reason, we're really stuck on it. And there are a variety of reasons, bank loans and zoning and things that make it complicated, and it's really stupid. I'm like, also community, you know, why do we need to be on 50 acres out in the woods with nobody in sight? We don't have the luxury for that anymore. So
Travis and Emily, I have a dumb question. So we can't see everybody who's here, right?
You can see the list. If you look at the bottom that says participants, you should be
Right.
able to see a list of everybody that's here. The people in the audience cannot see that list, but the four of you should be able to.
Okay, I was just curious, like.
Not so you can scroll through. You can scroll through that.
I do like the thing of BS and beer that, so often I'm in meetings in the evening, like select board meetings or something like that. And I have to go off screen to drink my bourbon and here it's
refreshing,
okay.
Isn't it?
It's okay. This place is good.
I kind of want to know what kind of bourbon it is though, because I
Basil
love
Hayden. Basil Hayden.
Good choice.
We have more Q&A from the chat. There's lots on.
I was gonna say, all of a sudden it got a little crazy.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, it sort of blew up, and I went in there and got distracted, so I may be a little off my game here.
All right. So what do we want to answer?
Well, we have one here in bold from Lisa Holderness. She's wondering about, did she miss a discussion of high quality building science, smart building skills, and training programs? Do you find a good source of education? Where are our tech schools? Seems like society has moved away from valuing real work, and I wonder if there's a best model out there for promoting careers in building and trades that you can point to. So we're looking for that best model.
I just got to say that the only people that have talked about that on this show before Lisa got on was Deirdre, Kate, and Mel.
Hi, Lisa. I mean, does anyone else want to go here on this one?
No, go ahead.
I feel like this probably comes up every other day in a conversation with a client that I have. And, I in a way, there's a generational gap, right, in the trades. And I actually, I got into the trades in San Francisco where there are unions and, in residential construction here in the Northeast, and particularly in rural areas, we don't have that resource so much, right? And so we do, there are programs and there are efforts at high schools and at tech schools and vocational schools and programs like Youth Build Boston, and there's other creative organizations and schools working on this, but it's a really small scale, right? And when you talk, I have a friend who teaches at the tech school here in Brattleboro, and it's like they have limited resources, they have a curriculum, it's hard to even get building science into that curriculum. And so I think we can do a better job as an industry. And I think actually unions are doing this too, of being like, hey, this is actually a really great profession. And also, hey, we want women and non-typical like construction workers to join us. And I think being able to really publicize that construction is not just like what you do when you can't do something else, but it's actually a really meaningful career. And I feel like we've lost that. And one thing I want to just share, one of the companies we work with, 377, they have this really cool idea that I've just been talking a lot about. We're all used to this concept of apprenticeship, hiring an apprentice and training them up. And it's a big hot topic and something we'll be focusing on a lot this year. But this idea of a mentorship, all these contractors out there and skilled tradespeople who are retired or semi-retired, or frankly, their bodies are not able to keep up. Like they have so much knowledge and experience and wisdom to offer. And some of them actually like teaching. And what would it look like for more companies like 377 does this, like to hire in someone who is a semi-retired tradesperson to be that mentor on the job site? Because what we're seeing across all the companies that we work with is a real struggle with a whole lot of people who are pretty green, a whole lot of apprentices, not a lot of highly skilled people who want to be in leadership or management positions. And the question I've been asking, internally is, who is going to pay for this? Are builders paying for this? Because they are. Are clients paying for this? Sometimes, the the state, the government, like who is paying for this massive amount of workforce development that we need to train up hundreds of thousands of construction workers that we need every day to meet the demands of our market? I would love to hear if people have ideas.
That's such a great idea. I'm just thinking that we have all these retired people who worked at South Mountain for their careers, and we've never thought about, I don't think, Deirdre, right? We've never thought about, are there ways that we could engage them in that way and, intentionally figure out a way that they could be mentors, as they used to be when they were working, but now they're retired. So
yeah, we had one retired carpenter who had been in the carpenters union since he was in high school. And so he had gone through that traditional training program, and he was excellent at structuring that training for the younger people, and also evaluating, whether they really had the skills that where they were going to make it as a career. And through retirements, we lose that knowledge.
And I want to shout out too, like there are other endeavors, like We Built This, which is a project of some of the female carpenters at Maine Passive House, where they're teaching carpentry trade skills to women and trans and non-binary folks. Hammerstone School, carpentry school for women. There are other programs that are really trying to build up, not that we don't also want cis men in the trades, because we want them and we need them, but being able to say, hey, there's like a whole other half of the population that we've never focused on, who are completely competent and capable, in fact, really good at this industry, that we've just ignored. So if we're desperate for a workforce, let's figure out a way to attract more of those folks. And I'll throw in there too, people, like people who ex-felons, people who are in recovery. I mean, there's a whole population of people that are excited and ready and willing to work. And like Kate said earlier with hiring, if we're just asking our friend of our friend, we may not reach them, so.
I got to jump in here just because this is my thing. I'm super passionate about this particular part of what we do. And this is the one thing that we actually, I told John before we started, I was like, we really founded our business with your book in mind and have failed miserably at many of those aspirations. But the one thing that we are doing a good job of is trying to give back. And we're really focused on the Keep Craft Alive stuff that we're doing. And I had the opportunity on Monday to go to Charleston, South Carolina, to meet with a bunch of high school students with a program called Be Pro, Be Proud, which I think you can go to beprobeproud.sc.com and it'll forward you to all the other state links. But this is a program that is specifically state funded to essentially reach out to high school kids and show them the opportunities in the trades. It's got this cool traveling trailer that has all these simulators in it, so you can kind of put a VR helmet on and try to fix a diesel engine, and you can hop in the heavy equipment and train as a heavy equipment operator, forklift operator, welding tech. I scored an 88 on the welding, by the way, which is way better than any of my actual field welds. But where I'm going with this is there are an amazing amount of resources on that website, where something that you mentioned early on, and I wrote it down. So glad to hear that you are partnered with local high school and trying to offer scholarship to the trades. This is something that is actually happening. You can, if you get a 3.0 in, I think it's 13 different states, your trade school is paid for, zero cost. The unions do this already. As you pointed out, the unions do an excellent job of saying, oh, you would like to work here? Yeah. Come on in. We will pay you for your apprenticeship. You will end up with a license and you will be working well paid in no time. And so I really am excited that this part of the solution is really super tangible. And I feel pretty strongly that we have to start earlier. I don't think we can wait till high school. I know that there are people in my community that are, sending their kids to swimming camp at age 4 because they're certain they're going to be a college swimmer and they want to go on scholarship, and they're focused on their career after that. Well, then they'll be a swim coach at, Northwestern, and it's all figured out. The kid's 4. So if we don't start exposing our elementary age kids to the joys of the trades, then I think we've already missed the opportunity to bring them into the fold. High school is almost too late, in my opinion. But at least if you're in high school and you're thinking about, God, what am I going to do? It's starting to get presented not as a failed out of college and into the trades, but opportunity immediate to either do something in higher education or go ahead and get educated in a trade that you can use today. And that is available and that is being supported. And I just wanted to shout that out because it's super.
Although I gotta say, Travis, and this responds to David Gerstel's comment just now about being skeptical about trade schools. You know, there are a lot of kids that fall through the cracks in our public education system. It's friggin' lousy for a lot of kids. For some kids, it's great. And having those vocational schools right in the same place and that they can choose to be in and have a good time every day instead of being bored to tears, it might change their future. So yeah, maybe you can learn a lot more on a job site than you can in a trade school. But what I've noticed is that in our vocational school, the teachers are quite passionate. They love building and they love teaching. And maybe they do a better job than we would do, at least in the early stages. So I wouldn't be so skeptical.
In our high school, the kids dip in and out, which is really a key part. They're not tracked. So they made every freshman's exposed to the trades program. They can do horticulture 1 year for one semester. They can do culinary for the next. And what we think about is they're not old enough, most of them, to know what they want to do. They need the exposure to many different things in order to be able to figure that out. It's just like going to college. Who knows what they're going to study in college? The very rare student does. The rest of them think they want to work in a hotel and they do a little bit of that. And they're like, nope, don't want to deal with the public. Maybe I want to do automotive. So they need that wide range at that age in order. They can't be tracked too early.
I just want to put out there too that, I think sometimes we focus heavily on carpenters, and, where we live, it is impossible to get a plumber, an excavator, a concrete sub, a mason, electrician, on and on. So I think the average age of a plumber in Vermont is like 58 or something. So it's also, there are so many awesome career choices. And I think, we could go off on a whole tangent about like how college and liberal arts were sort of pushed on people. And then a bunch of us ended up with a lot of debt and working in retail. Right. And so I think that there's so much opportunity here around this. And I just wanted to share, like, I have a friend in the Bay Area who is a site supervisor with a large commercial firm. And when she was growing up as a little kid in Vermont, she went to Rosie's Girls through Vermont Works for Women camp I remember her telling me this story as like an 8-year-old. And because of that, got into this trade and has I don't know how much money she makes, but she has a really good job and gets to work on really cool big buildings in the Bay Area, all because someone exposed her to this when she was a little kid. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's both and, right? We need to get these kids really young. We need to figure out what to do with all those liberal arts graduates who have religion degrees and the folks who, are in their 50s and are looking for a career change, and are seeing age discrimination. I mean, it's like we need all of them at the same time, and there's no one strategy that's going to get us there. But I think, having also this complement, I see it in the chat, is like, what is the curriculum that we can give construction businesses for on-the-job training who don't have a union, relationship to fall back on? I mean, I think there is a real gap there, and something that we're hoping to work on is kind of, let's help these smaller businesses do do on-the-job training, but give them a little bit of structure or, you know, guidance in how to do it in a supportive way.
Yeah. I keep saying to some of our clients that, you know, yes, I know you want a skilled lead carpenter who has this many years experience and is comfortable running a job site and good communicator, and good luck with that. And in the meantime, let's take the folks who are really passionate, really excited, who are apprentices, apprentice level, and grow your own lead. Yeah, it might take 4 years. And that's kind of what a lot of companies are doing. They're saying, okay, this is what, no one's going to come fix this for us. We have to be, you know, we're the ones we've been waiting for, right? Like we got to solve our own problems. And so no surprise that this conversation has like fully turned to let's talk all about the people, because like I said at the beginning, I think it is one of the hardest parts. You know, the prosperity piece, like, or the profit piece is just math, honestly. The planet piece, choose your battle and pick a line, pick a side and draw a line in the sand. That's what I think, you know?
I think that's a great point for me to shout out Emily, because she's too modest to say this herself, but I have to point out that one of the first conversations that I had with Emily that made me really respect her business model is that she told me straight up, yeah, I don't design anything except for high performance. And that solves all of this. I don't offer a crappy plan that will leak. I don't offer a poorly designed, irresponsible. I can't describe your business, Emily. You should describe your business. Mike put it in the chat. He asked, how's your business high performance? Please tell us, Emily, you're quite good at this.
Well, I mean, that makes me sound terrible. No, I'm kidding. But
I didn't mean it that way. I'm sorry.
You have to stop doing everything, and you have to just kind of say, this is what we do. Right. And then you move forward from there. So like very rarely do I have the conversation with my clients about what my wall system is, because they come to me because they're like, you know, we want X, Y, and Z, and you're answering their questions for them. You're not saying like as a lay person, do you know what a double stud wall means? Like, do you understand any of this? Like, I don't have to provide return on investment for your kitchen. So why do I have to provide it for my wall system, which is the non-pretty part that maybe you can't see and maybe you can't understand, but the comfort of living inside this house. You know, we're in Maine too. You're going to lose power. It's going to be, you know, how do you handle that? Like, this is what we do. And, you know, most of you know, I'm part of the Pretty Good House. And so as we move with the Pretty Good House too, is like, you know, changing the materials we use in it. Right. And maybe it was an incremental system. And I think that's part of the failure too, is, you know, if we had kept moving up with the code, as the code got better, we wouldn't be in this system. It would have been an incremental jump from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. You know, we put a project through in Portland. It was under 2015. Portland changed to 2021. And it still meets 2021, but it was great for 2015. For 2021, it's like, yep, we're there. We're doing it. We're kind of making. And so for me, it was really more of a, like, we're just not going to talk about any of those things. Let's talk about your program. Let's talk about your outcomes. Let's talk about your budget. Let's talk about what you have. And let's not talk about how we're going to make this a durable, comfortable, you know, home for you to live in. And shout out to the idea of having retired individuals teach you things. That is how I learned. My grandfather was a contractor for years and years, and we did Habitat for Humanity-esque things when I was in middle school and high school. And that was how I learned more about carpentry, which I think makes me a better architect. I think Mike put that in the chat box. I think all architects should go work for a builder for a couple of years, so you really understand what you're drawing, how you're telling them to do it. If you can't do that, spend time on your job sites, understand that. But I love that idea of, you know, people who are phasing out.
So Emily, that notion of a platform below which we won't go, that we mostly have, it's related to the thing of how much work do we take on? I think this is something that everybody I know is dealing with right now. So we've wrestled relentlessly with how much work to take on and I can't say that in recent times we've succeeded, but what we've succeeded at is building a 4-year backlog of carefully curated projects that align with our mission. That's the opportunity that we have right now. And during the last 12 months, we've turned down at least 24 substantial projects, and that leaves us with this select group of projects in the pipeline, and that makes us happy. And our clients have been incredibly patient with these long lead times, but even so, we've managed to schedule more than our available resources can comfortably produce. And so we're stressing out all of the people in our company. And, but if we can keep, as our revenues grow, due to this incredible amount of work available today, if we can keep the quality level up, we can gradually incorporate a slightly larger workload, but that platform that you talk about, that's inviolable and it's essential to our mission, right?
Well, and I think this is a business show to relate it back to business, right? Is if you work, and you have no idea what you're working towards, all of a sudden your ladder is propped against the wrong building, right? Like, isn't that concept? I forget whose business book that's in, because I read lots of business books, but it's fun. Like, if you know what you're working towards, then when you have climbed the ladder of your success in your career, it's propped against the right ladder, because that's the foundation that you set up for your company. Even if you can't achieve every metric from the very beginning, you start there and you work up. And that's been my goal in business, is, to do that. And, and then we do our community projects on the side. And Mel, I'm with you. Single family homes are a luxury. So they have to pay for that luxury. The more customizable it is, the more expensive it is. Stop customizing things, co-housing, multifamily housing. I mean, there are so many more ways to live.
But get those single family clients to help your affordable housing efforts. They can
Absolutely.
do it. They will do it. And
Robin Hood.
the
Robin
Robin Hood approach, it's worked for centuries, right?
I think that may have to be our parting shot. We've reached the end of our time together, and I just wanted to take a quick second to once again thank all of our guests. Excellent panel tonight, very informative. If anyone has any parting words, please proceed, but that's all for me. Emily?
Just thank you. You guys do such a great job.
Yeah, this is great.
This is awesome. Thank you for
thanks,
highlighting
everybody.
business in the context of all this too.
Well, this is how we get all of the building science people who join us every week to have successful businesses and make it through to the end, right?
Yeah.
I loved that statement. Thank you all for taking the time out to be with us tonight. So I appreciate it.
It was super fun.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks. Good night.
Night.
Bye.
Hey.